Hey, everybody, it's Evan Grant from the Dallas Morning News and DallasNews.com, your friendly Rangers insider, with another edition of This Week in Rangers Baseball, y'all. As I try not to talk with my hands so much, but it was a really big week. A lot happened. Let's go over this in 2 quick seconds. Jake Berger down. Leody Taveras out. Donnie Ecker out. Evan Carter up. And maybe the biggest news of all, Bret Boone in as the Rangers' new lead hitting instructor. We're going to unpack all of that, what it means. But first, a little bit of business. If you like our pod, our video cast, whatever you want to call it, here on the YouTube and at DallasNews.com, please like it. Please offer a nice review. Please rate it. Please subscribe. Please offer me a comment on how I can improve my service to you. And no, I cannot make myself better looking, and that's not because I'm already a really handsome man. It's because there's just not much you can do with this. All right, so we've done all that. I'm going to tell you one other thing. I'm going to have a little experiment on DallasNews.com starting next week. I'll be joined by Rangers former VP, senior VP of communications, and the historical guru of the franchise, John Blake, for a little experiment this season called the Sports Day Rangers podcast. We will hopefully have some fun, talk some ball, talk to some former and current Rangers and legends of the organization, and hopefully we'll bring you up to date on what's going on with the club and dive into what has been a very colorful history of the Rangers organization. Okay, all that is done. Let's talk about what's happened in the last week. Let's work up a little bit here. Leody Taveras was placed on waivers over the weekend and was claimed by Seattle. I think it's entirely possible that at some point in time, Leody Taveras may have a really good season in Major League Baseball, but the Rangers have given him over 1,800 plate appearances, and the level of performance to this point simply hasn't matched with what the club thought was his ability. And they need more. They need more out of center field, and quite frankly, they have options. Evan Carter, who was sent down to the minor leagues to start the season, has really progressed well and has been called back up, and he will replace and did replace Taveras in center field on Tuesday night in Boston. Went 2 for 5 in his first game back up. Carter's made some swing changes, kind of opened his stance a little bit to allow him to better rotate, I would say, his swing as he manages his back issue. Which is a chronic issue, and so he had to make some changes and needed some reps. But he certainly looked good on Monday, or on Tuesday. He's looked good for the last month at AAA Round Rock, and the Rangers' intent all along was for Evan Carter to play a significant role on this team and probably be the regular center fielder. It just has happened a little bit later in the season than the Rangers initially anticipated. I would not rule out the possibility that before the season is over, Evan Carter ends up being the leadoff hitter. But for right now, hitting him at the bottom of the order, where you go 9 Carter, 1 Josh Smith, 2 Wyatt Langford, 3 Corey Seager. That's your 4 best on-base guys in a row. And so it sets up for the guys who should be slugging. And Seager is one of those guys, and Langford is one of those guys who can slug, but both are both hitters with plate discipline, on-base ability, and the ability to slug. It opens up the ability for more of your one-dimensional sluggers to hit with the bases occupied and produce and really get return on investment, which is a word we'll talk about a little bit more today from their A-game swings. Jake Berger, one of those sluggers, was sent down to the minor leagues. I don't anticipate this will be a long-term assignment to AAA Round Rock, but he's not been the slugger the Rangers hoped he would be early this year. He's chasing the ball um, right at about his career norms, but on a team where the chase had become much more evident, I think that that stuck out. And look, at first base, the one strength, not one strength, but one of the strengths that Nate Lowe had was his plate discipline. And you look at where the Rangers chase percentage was for first base this year, and it had gone up to 36% from 24% last year. So even though Berger's been at his career norms, the Rangers had a difference there. And I think that all kind of dovetailed with the fact that guys weren't on base. Um, they were having to swing at pitchers' pitches. That puts the hitters in disadvantages, and it caused some issues for Jake. I also think that Jake is a guy who works really, really hard to live up to an expectation in his mind. He wants to be great. Um, and he's had a long road to get to the big leagues and to have success in the big leagues. He wants to do everything he's a pleaser. He wants to do everything that the Rangers want from him. And so I think that's led to putting a lot of pressure on himself. And I think that the only way to really get him to get out of his headspace for that is send him to the minor leagues where there's not as much pressure on individual swings, get him a little bit of reset, and let him come back up here. Maybe when this offense is functioning a little bit better and he can step right in and get more hitters' pitches and do more damage. So that's all of the player moves. Then we get down to the coaching move. Listen, I never like to see anybody lose his job, and I don't think Donnie Ecker in any way was a bad hitting instructor or offensive coordinator, which was actually his title. I look at the 2023 Rangers, and they were a great offensive team. Now, a couple of guys, Taveras, Garcia, both had career years and maybe career career outliers for them over their norms, but it was uh, it was great performance from everybody in 2023. Um, the Rangers regressed in 2024. Garcia and Jonah Heim and Leody Taveras all had significant back steps. There were a number of injuries to offensive players as well. Uh, and so you get into 2025, and the Rangers have these expectations for the offense. And I don't know that the Rangers' decision to make a change at hitting coach and dismiss Donnie and bring in Bret Boone, which we will get to in a minute, was based on just the first 34 games of the season. I think in large part it was based on the fact that this has been a continuation of what the Rangers had seen in 2024. So you can say that Chris Young was not fooling around or that he had lost patience, but I think it was more than just a month long issue that the Rangers were seeing. As for Donnie, look, I think Donnie's strengths are in in biomechanics, in game prep, in terms of really training hard. Let's put it this way: the Rangers are going to go face a sinker ball specialist, or a guy with a really unique arm slot like Garrett Crochet, and Donnie's philosophy was to really make game training hard so that the game would be a little bit easier. And baseball's never easy, but that was the idea. Um, and it all makes complete sense until you don't get results, and then you start to question whether or not it makes so much sense. The other issue here, I think, is that the Rangers hitting coaches in Donnie Ecker, Justin Veely, who had worked with Donnie in San Francisco, and assistant coach Seth Connor, they all kind of had similar backgrounds. They are big biomechanics, swing guys. They are big on data, and I'm trying to come up with a delicate way to say this, but none of them had major league experience. And you don't look, you don't need to have big league experience. The greatest hitting coach in the history of the Rangers, Rudy Jaramillo, never played a game in the major leagues. But I do think that it certainly is an advantage. I think it's an advantage for Chris Young as the president of baseball operations to have had experience for over a decade as a big league pitcher, and to have gone through everything that a pitcher firsthand could pretty much experience. I think that Mike Maddox, as the pitching coach, having spent a decade in the big leagues as a pitcher, had gone through just about everything that a pitcher could experience. And so when you walk into the room, immediately you get a little bit more cachet with players because they see the idea, been there, done that. It's a little bit harder for guys who haven't had that experience to get that immediate trust and immediate cachet. And so I think when you bring in a guy like Bret Boone, who spent 14 years in the big leagues, who made multiple All-Star teams, 3 All-Star teams, won 2 Silver Sluggers, was twice a top 10 MVP vote getter, he walks into the room with immediate cachet. And that players are willing to be more attentive or more willing to listen to what he has to say. On that topic, I thought one thing that Bret Boone said yesterday or Tuesday in his introduction to the club was that right now he's going to be in much more listen mode than he usually is. He said it's not my forte to be in listen mode, and I think this is important too. I don't think you want somebody who's going to come in here and say, "Hey boys, there's a new sheriff in town, and we're going to do it my way." I think that's the exact wrong approach. I think the approach is, "Hey guys, I believe in you. I need to get to know you. I want to know what you guys think and what you guys need, and let's talk baseball." And I think in some regards, what we have seen in Major League Baseball, where hitting coaches is concerned, um, hitting is more difficult than it's ever been because pitching is more advanced than it's ever been. There's more velocity, there's more spin in the game. Pitchers have ability to control the action. So pitch design, and pitch sequencing, that all makes the hitter react. So the hitter has to react. So if the hitter is reacting and he's got a ton of thoughts in his head about got to protect against the sinker down here, got to look for a slider that moves 17 inches this way, I think it's a lot of thoughts. I think it puts you in a position where what Bruce Bochy said on several occasions was he saw hitters in between. He saw hitters basically thinking too much. And that is not just a situation that existed in the Rangers hitting department. I think it exists throughout all of baseball right now. I think there's so much information. You're trying to give information to hitters, and it's great. It's a great tool until they get so much information that they feel a little bit paralyzed. I think the other thing that we have seen happen with the Rangers is you've heard Chris Young and Brett and Bruce Bochy talk about slug, 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 slug. I mean, we've heard the word slug so many times since the start of spring training. That's it's been drilled into everybody's head here. Where I'm going with this is it's great to slug. It's great to slug when you get into or to try to slug when you get into hitters counts, when you've got runners on base and you're in hitters counts, um, when you're operating from a leverage situation where maybe you've already got a little bit of a lead and you're looking to tack on or you're looking to really blow a game open. But I think you can't just go up there and plan to slug every at bat. And I think if I was seeing anything with this club, I think that's what I saw was that everybody, and this goes back years, it goes back and it predates Donnie Ecker. And I think it's something we've seen throughout baseball is we've seen guys go off and they are so focused on their swing. And in a lot of ways, Corey Seager, this is where there's always contradictions, right? Corey Seager spends hours every day basically rebuilding his swing from the ground up. Okay. And that's important. It's all important to know your swing, and that is your strength. But you also have to know what the game is asking of you at any particular moment. Ron Washington, his colloquialisms often made headlines when he was the manager here, but a lot of the stuff he said, when boiled down, made a lot of sense. Do what the game asks. And I think too often I was seeing the Rangers in situations where and it shouldn't have needed a hitting coach. I just think that today's hitters are a little less self-aware than previous hitters were about the idea of optimizing every run scoring opportunity. And so I saw hitters go to the plate, and I don't know that they had a whether I'm going to try and get a hit, but if I don't get a hit, it's going to be a productive out. I don't know that I saw enough of that from the Rangers. I don't know that I see enough of that in Major League Baseball. And so I think that that is part of the philosophy that the Rangers would love for Bret Boone to help um, infuse into the offense. They certainly want their guys to get off great swings. They certainly want their guys to know their swings, know what lanes of the strike zone in which they really perform well are. But they also want them to know, hey, look, there are situations here um, where doing what is most important is making sure that runner A gets from second to third or runner B gets from first to second to continue to optimize the ability to at least get a run out of the inning. Sure, you want crooked number innings, you want 4-run innings, you want 5-run innings when possible, but you also need to know that there are going to be a number of innings that pop up where you've got an opportunity to get at least 1 run. And when you fritter those away, you end up scoring 0 or 1 or 2, which is what we had seen from the Rangers for a 3-week span over the course of this year. So I think that's a big part of what Bret Boone is going to be asked in terms of messaging. I don't expect Bret to come in and tell guys, well, your swing plane needs to be here and your launch angle needs to be here. I think the message that Bret will deliver is, hey, let's make sure we're doing what the game asks us at this moment. And look, Bret learned a lot of his hitting and had his best years when he joined Seattle and when he was around Edgar Martinez. And Edgar was a great hitter, but he was also an unselfish hitter. And if that meant hitting the ball to the right side to move a runner over, well, Edgar also had the ability to hit a line drive to the right side and not just move a run over, but keep the inning rolling. But if he made an out, it was going to be a productive out. And I think that's what the Rangers are looking for here is to better get their guys in a mindset to say, I'm going to not just know my swing, but I'm going to know what the team needs in this at bat. Take a little bit more of the team approach, a little bit less of the individual approach. And so I think that's what the Rangers are trying to affect here. We'll see what happens. The risk you run into when you bring in a longtime major leaguer who was an elite level player and who doesn't have any coaching experience, which Bret doesn't have, while they get cachet when they come in the room, there's also the question of whether or not those players can communicate to players and not talk down to them, not tell them, this is how I did it. You got to be like I was. That doesn't work. You've got to reach 15 different guys who may not have all the same skill level as you, that may not have the same swing strength as you, that may not have the same strike zone discipline. It's about being able to be malleable to other guys' needs. And the greatest coaches, as Chris Young said, and others in baseball have said again, are psychologists. They know how to communicate. The message pretty much stays the same, but it's how you deliver the message. Some guys may need a little bit more prodding. Some guys may need a little bit more uplifting. It's all about how you deliver the message, and it's all about knowing when to listen and when to talk. So I think that's what the Rangers are going to try and get out of this hitting coach situation. Hey, the first night results were great. Now, what Bret Boone was able to accomplish from the time he got to Boston at 3 o'clock or whenever it was on Tuesday afternoon to game time, I'm not going to put too much stock into that, but I think it was certainly a step in the right direction, and I think we saw some really positive steps. Now the Rangers simply have to build on that as they continue to go forward. It's going to be worth monitoring. But that's all I've got on this week because it was a busy week for sure, but it was really mostly about one thing, about getting this offense fixed and moving it in the right direction. So until next time, everybody, it's been fun talking with you. Hope you enjoyed it. See you soon. Bye-bye. good video.